So I think that this case study, and also the case study that we had the opportunity to discuss with Coffee, if you want, you can like put like the animations, thank you. It really are connected, because all this discussion is helping us really to see how to make the customer journey very hassle-free, but at the same time ensuring that the consumers are aware about their purchasing, that they provide an informed consent, that they can have the benefits on time, that they can like complain when they have doubt, that they can effectively do all this process that you see here. And in order to present you these, because some of the elements were presented on the model, so we can move to the next slide and see something that is key to solve this. So there is what we call the life cycle of the insurance contract. When we want to make sure that that journey that we just solved, the consumer, is hassle-free, we need to look at all these elements. We need to understand if risk takers who are providing this type of products are effectively enabled to do so. We need to make sure if those entities who support the consumer are allowed to distribute products. We need to understand if the products are designed to target the needs of the consumers. We need to make sure that the information is provided in a simple, complete way. We need to make sure that the consumer provides the consent through an informed reflection, and that consent is provided through a mechanism that really makes the whole process hassle-free, that you can collect premiums through a simple way, you can manage the claim management quite easy, and to manage the disputes and complaints in a very easy way. So I won't go through all these questions, but I will focus on the ones that we discussed during the group discussion. So we're going to focus now on distribution. We're going to focus on communication. We're going to focus on managing disputes and complaints and managing claims. So for more detail, you can get back to these presentations for the other elements, but I would like to focus on that. So let's start with the component of distribution. So if we move, I think that, well, if we move to the next slide, we could see that there is a template that you used, groups number 1, 2, and groups number 2. So that tool, I think that we are quite familiar with it because we presented in previous sessions, and this is quite helpful to tell us how to implement the proportionality. So if we go to group number 1, can, like, the person who was leading can present us a little bit what was the problem and what were your findings? Thing that you have to deal about, like distribution, and you were exploring which were the risks that entailed allowing microfinance institutions, cooperatives, rural banks, and others to offer this type of products. So if you can tell us a little bit, what kind of elements did you find there, what risks that might entail, and what kind of measures do you think that you could take in order to enable this? I don't know who was the representative of group number 1. Anyone? No one? Group number 1?
Hang on.
Otherwise, well, let's move to the group number 2 because you have a similar.
Sorry, that was my group. Sorry, but we actually, sorry, Andrea, we were working with group 2 template. Sorry.
That's fine. It's the same thing.
Apologies.
No, it's all right. So maybe for your group for the group number 1, what were the main like concerns associated by allowing cooperatives, microfinance institutions, rural banks to participate in the distribution of this product? If you can, maybe. If not, well, I will mention some actually. So if we move to the slide, that will be our slide number 2. Sorry, number 23. You will see. Yeah. Sorry, someone from group number 1?
No.
Pascal, could you please move the slides to the 23, please? Thanks. So I will give you a little bit then the hints of resolving this question. So for all of you who were not part of activity for group number 2, 3, to activity number 1, the purpose of the group was like to analyze if the regulatory framework of Tralaland allows cooperatives, MFIs, rural banks, and convenience shops. And if you look at the case study, actually, it didn't allow that. It only allows that traditional insurance intermediaries distribute insurance products. So that's a problem, because effectively using them as distribution channels might be a challenge. So the second question that was asked is like, what are the risks and concerns that are associated with the participation of these new stakeholders? And that template that I was showing to you was very helpful there. So for that, I would like to give you maybe some tools. So if we put like the animations, we could see that effectively now in inclusive insurance, we have like a wide range of stakeholders that participate. And if we click on the next animations, we can see that it's not only cooperatives and MFIs, but there is like a wide range of entities. You have NGOs, you have like cooperatives, mobile network operators, you have like a lot of new entities participating there. And it's actually important to enable them to participate in this market. So if we move to the next slide, we could see that effectively there are ways to do so. So that leads with the questions B and C of the group number 1, which are like, for instance, in this slide, we could see like some risks that can come with these activities and this participation of new entities. So this relates as well with group number 2 activity. So there are risks that are very common that arise with the participation of these entities. Those risks were highlighted by Kofi. So for instance, there are operational risks, there are problems that may arise in terms of consumer protection, in terms of awareness. There could be an issue in terms of data management. But if you see here, one of the most important risks is understanding the understanding by the consumer about the product. So I would like to ask group number 2. These risks are linked to what you identified during your discussion. Did you find any other risks that could arise by allowing mobile phones during the life cycle? And if you can tell us a little bit how mobile would be used as well, so we understand why is that needed and why that might be also a risk. So who was part of group number 2?
Okay, sorry. In group number 2, we had a really good discussion. Actually, we took notes. I don't know if I can display the template or just discuss around the group to discuss about this.
Yeah, maybe just if you can go through that and we keep this slide in the meantime. Thanks.
Okay, just give me a second to share it. Okay, here is. I don't know if someone from the group can share about the.
Hello everyone. I am Abdesattar Bogizan from Group 2. I would share the work of my group. Here we say for the first step, identification of actor and role. We can name the actor like farmer, mostly women, insurer, Tralaland, insurer and brand distributor, cooperative, MFI, rural banks, and convenient store. And we can move now and the step 2, identification of risk. We can set lack of consistency, products promoted in English, very limited mobile connectivity, access to bank account is limited. The people is iterate, so they will not be able to read the contract sent to them and even be able to see the document. A large number of mobile phone is pro. However, women have a limited ability to use them. They have no compliant mechanism, making it difficult to them to log any compliance they may have. Broker and agents are the only distribution channels enabled by the regulation. Agents need to have professional degree. According to law, electronic signatures are not allowed. We can move now in the main issue. And the step 3, selection of risk reduction factor intervention. Here our group has worked in the main opportunity and risk. I can explain them now.
Yes, please.
We can start about the main opportunity. Ireland is a country with a high number of population. It is a huge opportunity to implement this kind of product. We can add also another reason, like higher rate of poverty. It's another opportunity to implement an inclusive insurance. It's an adequacy with these types of people. We can also add the higher rate of workforce is more than 60%. In the informal sector. This sector is underserved. This is another opportunity. We can add another reason is the mobile subscription rate is high, is 130 to 100, and now we can move to the obstacles or the risk associated with this population. We can speak about the high level of poverty and the high level of illiteracy and the low revenue of the majority of population and the low level of mobile connectivity and the low level of financial inclusion and the saving right in the bank is another obstacle to the life insurance. Okay.
Thank you very much, Abdesazar. That's very helpful, and it really shows that there are effectively a lot of reasons why it's important to, for instance, in Tralaland, in this specific product, to enable the use of mobile phones to facilitate a lot of processes. Because, as you said, there is like a lot of tenancy. Maybe the mobile connectivity might not be great, but that could be effectively. I mean, however, we need to find, like you mentioned that as a risk, like there is a gender gap, so we need to find maybe ways on how to cope with that. If we are going to integrate mobile, we cannot neglect the communication ways to engage with women. You also mentioned an important risk that I think that is key when we talk about like engaging digitalization, but also other entities like microfinance institutions, cooperatives, banks, NGOs in this process. And it's like they need to ensure that even though they could participate, they need to inform very well the consumer about the product, so this risk of lack of awareness and understanding is addressed. So I will like go very quickly with some guidance. So this is effectively a big issue for inclusive insurance, so I really recommend you to have a look at like the key papers that we have shared with you in the A2Connect, because it really shows us that it's encouraged for supervisory authorities to allow these entities, but make sure that you really focus on elements such as training, to ensure that education, that like the information that is provided is appropriated, ensure that is a close supervision of distribution channels through the insurance companies, and also ensure something that Kofi mentioned several times, which is collaboration with other supervisory authorities, because it could be that these entities are supervised by them. So those are like 3 key messages that I wanted to bring. And I would like to flag your attention into the slides so you can review them later. I remember that some of you, I think that it was Alex in the first session, that you mentioned that you would like to see and understand other countries, how do they manage with this. So in these slides, you might find some examples on how other countries have regulated this. But before jumping to that, I would like to show the next slide that is quite helpful for this. There is no recipe. There is not a way that will tell you when there are MFIs in your country, you have to do this and that. But there is like a kind of a methodology that you could take in consideration. So if you put the animations a little bit, you could see that, again, we are in this kind of like a balancing act. How do I allow these entities to participate? But at the same time, how do I ensure that their participation is responsible? So we need to make sure about the type of information that these entities are providing, or these individuals. Do you remember in the case of Tralaland that we say that men from the village were providing information about the product? So that's important because they might need to be very well trained, because they are exposing information about the product, they are sharing that information. But it might be as well that you have like other entities just leaving the information on the product available. In my group, for instance, Rudina mentioned that an idea to communicate the product could be to leave leaflets in shops where people can like gather information about the product. In that case, those shops might not need a lot of training, but might need to have like a framework to work. So here a message is like, have a look about the simplicity of the product, the kind of activities that these entities are carrying out in order to define what measure will be the most appropriate. Examples, I'm not going to go through that, but just for the benefit of all of you, this problem has been addressed in other countries and continues to be addressed. So if we move to the next slides, we could see, for instance, that Peru, for instance, broadened the distribution options of microinsurance specifically. The Philippines did the same. Brazil even created a figure of the microinsurance broker, so in order to give room to these entities to participate. If we move to the next slide, we could see as well another interesting example, which is CIMA. So there is that federation of like the West African markets that gather like quite a few number of countries, and they have a microinsurance regulation that actually lists all these entities that could be allowed to distribute and commercialize. So this is actually that something that you could do as the supervisory authority of Tralaland. Maybe think about like allowing those MFIs, maybe mobile as well, allowing all the entities that are going to be in the distribution, and see how effectively this could be done. An advice, so a message as well from the papers of IIS is that probably from the beginning you don't know what to require from them. So maybe a sandbox, maybe a test and learn, a pilot, where you can allow this product to be commercialized by these entities. You will be able to identify the risks more deeply, and you will be able to define which will be the best measures to do so, what kind of trainings might need to be required, what kind of certifications, what kind of approval processes. So now let's move to the third point. So do you remember that we had like this life cycle? We have risk carriers, we have distribution. So we talk about distribution, now we're going to talk about product design. So we have been talking about what is SUAVI. We talked about this yesterday, and you have it in your models. So simplicity is extremely important. It requires like different levels. It requires simplicity of the mechanism that you're using to communicate the product, the simplicity of the language, the simplicity of like the processes. And this is extremely important to build trust on the consumer in respect of insurance. So now I would like to ask Group 3, Mariam, you mentioned that you would like to present as well. So please tell us what was the problem in Group 3 and how did you solve it? How did you solve this issue in terms of communicating nicely the product to consumers? And maybe, Pascal, I'm just going to steal the presentation because I'm going to show like the findings of that discussion. So Miriam and Tamar, I think both of you would like to share.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm here. Tamar, you are here, or I can just make a presentation?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, let me.
Okay. We are just talking how to make more trusted persons, these smallholders, and make them kind of insurance product users. So we know, everyone knows that, for example, I have to describe my country's example. Georgia is a small country and there's so many different regions and they have so many different behaviors, or they are like this. So in this case, if we want to gain their trust, we need more adopted or just simplified terminology to talk with them, because when you are coming with them and you are using formal language, they don't care and they are just somewhere and you are just another part and there is no bridge between us. So we need simplified terminology, frankly and open-hearted speaking. Also, but when we are using simplified words, it must be near with the main idea. Okay, we can just tell stories in this case. So, and we can also make give them real examples from Georgia, from another farmers also, and because when you are giving them real example, they are not mistrusted anymore. So it works. Also, our idea was making some kind of commercial and banners and to give them signals, and if it will be possible, they can visit shops and after kind of modification buy kind of insurance products. But this communication face-to-face is really important, but it's connected with a huge amount of charges and it's not such easier to make. So I have to just make a conclusion. Simplified communications, real examples, or we can just make meetings for these persons who are already used this product and they can really talk with each other and share experience, give them these commercial signals or banners or somewhere, and make these products more easier accessible for them so they can use. But I don't know what's happening exactly in other countries, but our country is really working to support smallholders and also improve insurance sector. So maybe it takes time to be more really improved, and we need real achievements and more development, but working is already in progress. So I'm sure that step by step, year by year, we will achieve more progress and we will cover these smallholders and they will be more kind of protected and harvest will protect also and income will be raised. So it's my idea.
Yeah, thank you very much, Miriam. I really enjoy all the discussion with the group, and I also liked what you said that, for instance, in Georgia you have the Georgian Farmers Association who could be in a position.
Yeah. Sorry, I will add this information. We can just collaborate already authorized associations as this Georgian Farmers Association is, because they are working with the smallholders and they are making real progress and they are really help them. So when you trust someone and for example he or she is saying that this product is good and it's really useful for you, you have trust. So we can use this segment also. And we were talking also, I just missed this information, sorry, about agents gender of the agents, because we have a little bit quite hard situation, for example, in mountain regions, and we can just detect this segment and we can just choose the representer, because it's, in this case, it's a male or female, it's really mirrors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very important point, because in the group we mentioned that if like the target market will be women or there are only men talking about the product, that there'll be a complexity, no? So, and maybe in terms of the changes of the regulation, well, you mentioned like the importance of training those agents appropriately by the insurer.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Maybe as well, you mentioned like the allowance of the native language, because the regulation of Tralaland only allows English, and also the advertising of insurance through simple tools like videos and so on. So I think that it was very good, because it really gives us a snapshot of how to make this like a Suave product. So that's great. Thank you very much. So let's go back to the main presentation. So here we could like bring some elements. We know that we are really close to end the session, but I just want to make sure that you see where this information is. So if we go back to the slides, and we could see the slide number. I can share it like if it's probably will be easier now that we're moving around slides. Sorry, Pascal.
Which slide do you want it on, Andrea? Which slide?
That's fine. I just if you can like show the slide 29, please.
Yeah, it's there.
Great, thank you. So you see that effectively we're trying to implement this concept of Suave. If we move to the next slide, there are like actually very interesting approaches to simplify, and I just want to flag it very quickly. That first one that you see, actually the green one, was developed by the Supervisory Authority of Colombia in one training. So we were thinking about like how to develop something that will be simple, and they say, okay, well, let's do something like a game. So you receive this thing and you can like just move around and look at like the covers and exclusions, and how do you receive the claim? What kind of process do you have to do to claim? So that's actually quite interesting. Then you see, for instance, like a card, something very simple that could be that you can keep somewhere very closely to you. Even in Guatemala, I have to say that it's very interesting that we're using this kind of approach. And like women, they generally use this kind of like dressing that has a pocket. And this is where actually they are putting this kind of cards. So let's try to think about like the simplicity as well in terms of means of communication. But let's make sure that the regulation allows this, because it could be that the regulation says that it needs to be a document of like 10 pages with a lot of information. So that's key. Now, if we jump to the slides, yep. Now, I would like to jump to the group 4, because now we're just closing a little bit. So in these slides, you're going to have like some guidance in terms of communication and information that are really aligned with what Miriam was telling us. So have a look at these slides in details. I kept them because it's important for you to have them. And there are some examples on how some countries have like allow the simplicity of the policies and so on. Now let's, I particularly advise you to have a look at slide 35. Just we can like show it very quickly, so you could see that there is an interesting chart where you have like examples from countries that have like adopted a proportionate approach to allow simplicity in that process. Oops, I think that there is something very wrong with that slide, but anyhow, we will share that with you. Now, if we move to the next slide, we see the consumer consent. And I think that, now I don't know if it's me, but I am seeing like the presentation in a very weird mode. Probably it's only me. Yeah, okay, so there is the issue of the consumer consent. And I want to connect this with something that Ivan was mentioning in the previous session with coffee. That was precisely the idea of making sure that the consumer really reads, understands, have access to the information before providing the informed consent. So the example that was given by Coffee is like, okay, in this devices. How do you make sure that you read, that you saw a video, that you understood the product, and then you check or just push a button and then you provide your consent. So that's important. Now, let's move to slide 35, please. So we're going to talk about the payment of claims. So for the payment of claims, I would like to ask now the group number 4 to present their findings, and we can take from there.
Okay, I will share what we have put together. You're not seeing it, right? Are you seeing it?
We can see your whole screen, I think.
Okay, I'll try again. How is this?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically we had time to answer sort of questions 1 and 2, and then we ran out of time for question number 3, but we're happy to discuss now. So here we had Kurala, Luis, Alex, and Suela actively contributing. So I would like to invite the 4 of them to present what we spoke about.
If my colleagues do not mind, I would like to share a bit.
Go ahead.
It's Perla speaking, okay. So as we understand, the mobile payout could be done. So every farmer have a mobile at least for one family, one piece of mobile. So this could be a very good decision how to get money, not through the bank, but sitting at home. The second version is getting money from the shop. Actually, not money, but get the products from the shop, which will be equivalent to the money which this farmer should get from the insurance company as a claim.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, women mostly like they can go to the nearest shopping center, and for instance, the insurance company will pay to the shopping center instead of that woman which get this insurance case, for instance. So, and the third through the post office, send all the checks through the post office. And the second question, do you think this is appropriate? Do not have a complaints mechanism? We all agree that this is not appropriate, not consumer centric, and for sure there should be some complaints mechanisms. And for instance, knowing that mobile phone is, I mean, all the farmers have a mobile phone. Nowadays, it becomes easier to deliver some sort of survey or consumer answers to the series of questions. So the insurer can get some idea how their products are working on the rural places. So because this is important in order to make product more customer centric. This is
excellent. Yeah, that's very good. Thank you very much. I really like what you're saying, because you're I will focus now on the question A. So you're really proposing a mechanism to manage the claims that will be faster, because did you see the proposal of the insurance company is very long and complex, and it requires people to spend money by themselves, literally, to go and receive the payout. So that's very important, that maybe mobile payouts could be done, and you see that the regulation actually allows that, so that's very good. Maybe we have to think about what to do with the gender gap, because we remember that women generally do not have access to mobile, but you also show that it could be a payout through different mechanisms and touch points, like shops, like the post office. I really like what you say about like an in-kind solution, an in-kind payout. That's something that is being tested, and actually it gives a lot of value to consumers. If we can jump like very quickly to the slide 38, I'm going to tell you about something else that is important about the claims management. So for claims management, the timing is very important, because imagine that there is a woman who effectively will receive a payout, but that payout is provided, I don't know, 2 years after the event. Well, you lose trust in insurance, and the purpose of insurance is not fulfilled. So the time to receive the payout is very important, and that has been addressed by some countries actually. So this payment needs to be simple, it needs to be transparent, accessible, affordable, and quick. So for instance, in Peru, there is a specific regulation on microinsurance that provides that payments on microinsurance need to be done in a deadline of 20 days. Generally, for other products, is 30 days. And I think that most of the countries is 1 month, 30 days. In Ghana, there is like a very clear mapping of the time that is required. So claim needs to be accepted or rejected in 7 days after the consumer has like provide all the proofs of for the payout, and the payout needs to be done in 10 days after having accepted or accepted. In Mexico, there's a limitation as well, and in the Philippines there is also a limitation. But I really want to keep in mind all these elements. This is the core really of trust. People need to know what to do, how to do it. It has to be a very transparent process. Let's imagine in a life insurance product that obviously it is required to have a death certificate, but let's imagine that in Tralaland, a death certificate basically is only possible to obtain in the administrative centers, and this will take me 10 hours to get to, and it will cost me a lot of money. So how can we make sure that this is accessible, that this is possible, and also affordable? Okay, so now that's for the payment of claims that was addressed by group number 4, and you also had like an important element to address. So if we move to the next slide, is like solving disputes, solving complaints, but also solving like potential legal disputes. So there are like 2 blocks here that I want to flag. There are internal resolution of complaints that need to exist. So I completely agree with you. It's not good that the insurance company doesn't have this kind of system. And this solution needs to be simple, transparent, and accessible. So some countries, specifically for microinsurance, have established as well some deadlines in order to respond to claims, complaints, and queries that consumers might have. So this is different to the claims management because it's not about the payout. This is more like when people have like doubts, when people are not happy with the payout and they ask the question to the insurer. So there are deadlines that have been established in some countries. You see, for instance, in the Philippines, there is 5 days deadline, for Peru, 15 days. Now, the external solution, and that's the last question that you didn't have time to address, but that's fine. One key element is that, unfortunately, most of the people who are not able to have access to insurance do not have access to justice, or they don't have like easy access to justice. That means that probably they don't know really what are the judicial mechanisms to defend themselves. They might be quite far from the centers that where the tribunals are established. So that's a key element, and there are some ideas to solve this. So one idea could be to create like grievance mechanisms specifically for that, that have like the impact of like almost a legal, a judicial decision. So in India, for instance, this kind of systems exist. Also in Mexico, there is a specific entity that is Conducef that has the role of solving these kind of disputes. Another important figure or instrument that could be used here is the ombudsman. So you could have like an ombudsman who will solve the solution without going to like the traditional justice scheme or system that could be quite complex and difficult to reach. In the Philippines, there is a specific alternative dispute resolution for microinsurance. And in Nigeria, there is arbitration specifically for microinsurance. So let's not forget that. And now to finish, because I know that I have taken like some extra time from you, my key message is like, look at all these life cycle. So if you remember, we have that cycle in the slide 17, where we have risk takers, distribution channels, the design of the product, communication, consent, collection of premium, claims management, management of disputes, and so on. So it's very important to ensure that all these like stages, all these steps are well addressed, that they are hassle-free, that they and very important for you, that consumers are effectively protected. So I leave you with the slides so you can like go deeper with the country studies, and I really advise you to look at the IIS paper on conduct of business on 2015 that was shared in the A2 Connect, but it's key because it's key for this kind of discussions. So with that, I finished my session, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I can stay here a little bit longer, otherwise we can address that by email or maybe tomorrow. Thank you very much. And sorry, Pascal, for the extra time.